Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Today we're talking about UFC Vegas 54, the aftermath, the recap, the anticlimactic nature of Aleksandar Rakic potentially blowing out his ACL against Jan Blachowicz, the former light heavyweight champion, in our main event. Now, it was round 3. It was early. You could argue that it was 1-1 apiece. Therefore, the question now becomes, does Jan Blachowicz deserve an immediate title rematch with Glover Teixeira? I mean, Glover Teixeira seems like he wants the rematch. Jan wants the rematch. He says that he did enough. There's a lot to talk about. We had a great fight of the night on our hands, though, folks. Katlyn Chookagian versus Amanda Ribas. Who would have thought that? Katlyn Chookagian, the blonde fighter, the fighter who is guaranteed to have one thing in life. I guess 3 things in life for all of us. Death, taxes, Katlyn Chookagian wins by decision. I think that's just kind of the way that it goes. And it happened. Who would have thunk it? Folks, before we get into all the other fun stuff we need to talk about, obviously I got to bring in my co-host, the New Mexico native himself, the Santa Fe bomber, AJ. Brother, listen, my man, I said death, taxes, Katlyn Chookagian by decision. I think that's a guarantee in life, but also I think these light heavyweight matches from time to time, these anticlimactic natures, sometimes are also a certainty. What did you think about UFC Vegas 54, brother?
Yeah, I can see why. I want to think that, especially once we get 2 big dudes in there with so much heat behind it, sometimes it just ends a little anticlimactically. And I also think that's why a lot of the time we were going by decision, you know, on these picks we were given for this fight card. I actually kind of liked it, man. I didn't think it was that too anticlimactic, to be completely honest with you. I mean, anytime I see somebody blow out a knee, I always think the climax of that ACL was pretty rough. So. No, man, good fight night overall. Some interesting things unfolded. It was a lot of fun, man. How'd you like it overall?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for a sleeper card, quote unquote, which this more or less is, I mean, it delivered, man. We're talking about 6 finishes and 11 bouts, 5 upsets, so that's always fun. Sometimes you have these very one-sided, red corner gets all the wins, and it's all unanimous decision. I mean, this arguably, I think we had more finishes on this card than we did on UFC 274, so that speaks for something. But before we move on, AJ, brother, just pull your mic up to you just a little bit more so we can get into it. Folks, let's do a little bit of record recap right off of the bat. So 4 and 2 a pop. Me and AJ, brother, wash, man, wash. And we didn't have the same picks. We differed on 2 different picks. We had locks on 4 of them, and we got 3 of the 4 correct. But it ends up in a wash. Therefore, 59 and 32 am I on the year, and 61 and 30 are you. I maintain a 64% accuracy rating, and you maintain that 67%, brother. So looking good, and I think I had said that this was in the realm of possibilities, but we hate to see it happen every single week, brother. We're going to have to make something else happen next week. Over-unders, brother, it was a little bit interesting, but 2 and 4 a pop. We actually washed on that too. So we washed on the money line. We washed on the over and unders. We hit correctly on, I hit correctly on the Chookagian over. You hit correctly on the Chookagian over. I hit on the Camacho Torres under, and you hit on the Nascimento Hadley over, brother. So lots of interesting stuff to talk about right there. So folks, if you were just listening and you're not watching, you should definitely come check us out on YouTube so you can get the whole entire gambit of the show, the full quality. But I'll go over it. So both of us, we got the Rakic pick wrong. Blachowicz, he gets the win. Rakic blows out his knee. A TKO is a TKO. Therefore, a win is a win is a win. We hit on Ryan Spann, Davey Grant, Katlyn Chookagian. I hit on Allan Nascimento. You hit on Miguel Torres. I missed on Frank Camacho. And you missed on Jake Hadley, brother. And before we move on to some of the prop bets real quick, I wanted to ask you, my man, what did you make of the 2 undefeated fighters going into UFC Vegas 54? They're both 8-0. Nick Maximov and Jake Hadley, both 8-0 respectively. They come into the UFC Vegas 54 and they lose their O. Very, very, how would you say, not the way that you want to kind of get your UFC career going, especially if you're Jake Hadley. But for Nick Maximov, he already has a lot of hype. So what do you make of this whole situation?
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot of hype going in. I feel like not as big of a loss for Jake Hadley, even though it is very destructive, you know, losing your O. I feel like Maximov almost suffered a little bit more from it because everybody thought this dude was slick on the ground, which he is, very slick on the ground. And sometimes that Petrosky is just a little bit slicker, a little devastating, I think, for both fighters right here. And it's lucky that Taira was able to slip by and not catch or not lose his O2, man, because there's a lot of them going out, man. It's the nice thing about this, as much as we all can think, the Maximov fight surprised me the most. As much as we all can think that this is going to end up in a certain way, I almost have to eat some crow because I said that fight has the potential of being boring. not boring was it not, man? And that's how it goes. You never know exactly what you're gonna get. And like I said, luckily for Tiara, he avoided losing his O as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, the 10-0 record preserved. I think 11-0 now that he got the big win. But yeah, I just think it was interesting that these two undefeated fighters come in, most hyped up prospects on the card, and immediately just lose the O, man. It happens to the best of us. But we'll talk about that more in depth in just 1 second, folks. So we promised you a little something on the last show. We said we're gonna get more into the prop bets. We're gonna show you what our prop bets are. We're gonna talk about them in depth, and then on the post show, we're gonna review and see how we did. So I think now it's that time, but let's get into the prop bets. So it looks like, my man, we didn't do too hot. 1 and 5 was I on the prop bets. 2 and 4 were you on the prop bets. However, folks, you do see a little note at the bottom of the screen, which indicates an asterisk, right? The asterisk indicates the correct money line pick, but the wrong method of victory. So obviously, for money line, we both did pretty hot. 4 and 2 a pop. The Rakic pick was kind of fluky in terms of that loss in a fight that, I mean, he was kind of winning. Either way, in terms of the props, we missed on the Rakic points, Spann points, Grant points, but we hit on the guaranteed Chookagian points, -125. You have to love it. I missed on a Camacho TKO and a Nascimento sub, which came oh so close, but that's how the cookie crumbles. But AJ, my man, you called that Miguel Torres TKO at +215. You got to love it. You missed on the Hadley points. So you won the week in terms of the prop bets. We washed on the money line. So with that being said, my man, I think that it's fair to say, let me pull that back. I think it's fair to say, AJ, that in a situation like this, when you're basically picking the right fighters, but you're picking the wrong methodologies, you got to keep going with the process. You got to keep going with the way that you're thinking about these fights, because you are right. Just because you envision a fight happening a certain way does not mean it's going to happen. Anything can happen in a fight. That's the beauty of the sport. That's why we love this sport so much. What do you make of this first week of recording the prop bet record?
Man, I'm actually, even though the numbers might not support, I'm actually pretty happy and not necessarily surprised, but relieved, I guess, because we're pretty close on a lot of those, man. Even going 2 and 4, but still getting the right, the right pick selection on the money line. Even though we didn't necessarily hit on the prop bets, there's still a couple gems in there that did make you some money out there if you're willing to put it down on the prop bets. And I like it, man. Sometimes, in life, you don't always win and you don't always get undefeated. You're not hitting on every single one. And sometimes that happens. You got to own up and take it as it is. But we still got the 2 points in there, almost a gimme with the Chookagian by points. Yeah. But like she said, it's almost guaranteed, which is nice.
Yeah, basically guaranteed. So, folks, this is kind of the main point that we're running with right here, is that a lot of people will give you their picks and then they'll run away and then they won't honor the results of their picks. But we're showing you the results of their picks. This was 1 week. Interesting week, UFC Vegas 54, lots of finishes, and I think that's the key difference is we didn't see the finishes happening, but they happened, and it is what it is. So without any further ado, folks, drop a like, subscribe if you enjoy the program. About 274 subscribers. Look at that, a 1 subscriber boost. Let's get 275. Let's get 280. How about that? You know where to go, bloodywaterpodcast.com. Hit us up on Instagram at Bloody Water Podcast and on Twitter at Bloody Water Pod. And AJ, without any further ado, let's talk some main card, brother.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. This was an anticlimactic finish, brother, but we need to talk about what happened while the fight was still going down. So, at the time of the finish, Jan Blachowicz had outstruck Aleksandar Rakic in terms of significant strikes, 31-27. But on the flip side, Rakic, he had landed one of his 4 takedowns and controlled Blachowicz for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. So if this is anything like some of the other fights that were getting judged on this main card, that control time has to count for something, because people were really hyping up control time on this card, man. So what counted more to you? The destroyed, decimated left leg of an Aleksandar Rakic who, for whatever reason, decided even after the Volkan Ozdemir fight where he got his leg picked apart, he just didn't want to check kicks? Or Rakic saying, I'm going to initiate my game plan, I'm going to put Blachowicz on the ground, and I'm going to basically emulate what Glover Teixeira did to him, except I'm not going to be able to get the submission. Which one was more impressive in your eyes?
Definitely the latter for me, Derick, because that's what I didn't expect Rakic to be so good at. I expected Blachowicz to be the better wrestler, to have the power, to go in there, be the bigger guy as he's controlling the fight. But it turns out Aleksandar Rakic had a different plan, man, going in there and actually going to implement the plan that we saw Glover do against Blachowicz and do it to pretty successful rate, man. I mean, it's one thing to be able to get a guy down, but hold him down for that control time that you're talking about. That to me is just a little bit more impressive. I mean, mean, also to the point you're making as well, though, Derick, not checking kicks and just being cool with your left leg getting absolutely decimated by Rakic is always an interesting plan whenever somebody puts it to to play. But I think the takedowns and the control time just was a little bit more impactful, through the fight. Because I agree with you. I think Aleksandar Rakic was winning the fight until he wasn't.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm kind of struggling with at this point, because it's like he is kind of winning, kind of. But at the same time, you can kind of feel the momentum start to shift in favor of Blachowicz, because at a certain point, man, when you have that lead left leg and you're refusing to switch stances, you're refusing to check, and it's just getting picked apart. I thought we were going to see Davey Grant versus Louis Smolka all over again, because Davey Grant stopped Louis Smolka due to leg kicks, more or less. I mean, he got the TKO finish, but really it was the leg kick that initiated the process. So it kind of felt like an inevitability, a matter of time, that Blachowicz got the win. But either way, we're just kind of predicting. We're speculating at that point, man. So let me ask you this before we get into it more. Do you think that this fight deserves a rematch?
Yeah, I would think so. And you were talking about it before. Where does this fight necessarily determine or call for Blachowicz to get the rematch against Glover? I mean, one, we have to see if Glover wins. If Glover beats Yuri, then we can have that whole conversation. But I think this one needs to run it back, man. Very close fight. It wasn't a solidified. Rakic was losing, and then he tore it. Then he hurt himself. So there was some mix 'em up. There was some room for conversation, which I think that right there kind of makes us want to see that rematch a little bit more.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you, but the hard part about it is that that's the logical answer. That's the if everything was just in the world, this is what would take place. But on the contrary, not everything is just in the world. And if Aleksandar Rakic is out for a prolonged amount of time because his ACL popped, you think that they're just going to have him, have Blachowicz wait around for it? I don't think that's how it's going to work. I think that Rakic, unfortunately, kind of gets relegated into the back half of the top 5, maybe even 6 now, even though he was number 3, even though he lost on a non-contact injury. It's weird, brother, and this is kind of how the UFC goes. Look at what they did to Tony Ferguson when his knee blew up and he was supposed to fight for the championship. Next thing you know, look at where he is today. So in this fight, though, man, one more thing before we kind of, move away from this main event. Jan Blachowicz, brother, I thought his striking looked crispy. He was able to handle the kicks of Aleksandar Rakic very well, and that's something that I wasn't really sure he was going to be able to do. Was it surprising to you that he basically took one of Aleksandar Rakic's best weapons, which is the leg kick, and he effectively nullified it, man? He was checking those leg kicks like it was nobody's business. I thought that was going to be a big, big factor, because if Rakic hurt the lead leg of Blachowicz, I thought that's when it was going to be deep waters, bloody waters right there. But it was the contrary, man. It was the reverse. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, man. No, it was more surprising to me because I thought Blachowicz was going to be a lot more impacted by the shots of Rakic, man. Rakic, he comes in looking strong, looking, powerful and mean. Blachowicz sits there, takes the shots, deals with him as he will. Looked a little bit better, a little bit more grizzled in there, which was nice for Blachowicz. Not what I was expecting at all. So shocked. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily like mind blown, like I can't see this coming ever, but a little bit more to my surprise. You know what I'm saying?
Would you say that this is another case of people undercounting, discounting, underrating, counting out Jan Blachowicz? I felt like this was one of those where I'm like, well, you can't really count out Blachowicz because he was just the champion, but at the same time, this Rakic dude is scary, bro. So do you think that this is, basically people eating their crow on Jan Blachowicz because we didn't believe in him?
It seems like it, right? Especially with the fact of, he has to kind of go back and rematch this one to prove it. It just wasn't really a solidified win. Kind of feels like we're sleeping on Blachowicz, man, and not really giving him the credit he did deserve, because especially on an injury and a non-contact injury where you didn't really cause it. Yeah. A lot of people are thinking, it was time, probably a past injury, whatever the case may be. Yeah, Blachowicz, he said it best, at the end of the day, I'm the one that got my hand raised. My body lasted longer than his body. It's true, all of it.
And speaking of that, I will say that I didn't know if this was the right time to mention it, but Aleksandar Rakic did actually note, man, and I'll pull it up real fast just so that we can all be in the clear over here. So, look at this headline, brother. Aleksandar Rakic reveals UFC on ESPN 36, which is Fight Night 54. The injury originally occurred 3 weeks ago in camp. So, of course, this happens. Of course, you come into the fight with a pre-existing injury. But so basically, yeah, he's saying that his knee buckled. He wrote a whole Instagram post about it, all that good stuff, and he hopes that he gets a rematch. That's basically the summary of what's going on. But with that being said, it also goes to show it's like, well, did Jan cause it? I don't know. He kind of did, but kind of didn't. Either way, a win is a win is a win. And we need to just kind of wait and see what happens next for the Polish power, the legendary Polish power of Jan Blachowicz, who gets another TKO. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, AJ. So this co-main event that we have on our hands, Ryan Spann, this is a dude who, if you watch his pre-fight interviews, if you watch his face-offs, you would think that he has some of that Jose Aldo type personality where you don't want to make eye contact, you know what I mean? You don't really want to partake in the traditional nature of the bravado, of the machismo, of the I'm going to stare at you. And it kind of is a weird ceremony if you think about it. What we do before fights, we get in each other's faces and we stare at each other and we can't touch each other, you know what I mean? That's against the rules because we're going to fight tomorrow, but we need to just stare at each other and kind of gauge each other's energy, gauge each other's, you know, what would you call it? You're gauging something in their soul right there. What would you call it right there?
Man, I don't know the exact word for it, but I say like filling out the vibe, bro, seeing what's up, you know, catching, just putting out that energy, seeing what the energy's like.
But think about it. You're an alien. You come down to Earth and you come watch this ceremony, this ritual that we were partake in every single week on a week-to-week basis on the biggest fights on the planet, and you say, these humans are interesting. I wonder why they do that. Why do they have to get so close? I mean, the Rakic and Blachowicz, they were nose to nose. You know, they might as well have kissed right there. You know what I'm saying? So Ryan Spann, he wears his sunshades, right, the tinted one, so you can't see the eyeballs. And then you got Ion Cutelaba, who is a master of intimidation, a master of the bravado. And sometimes being a master of bravado doesn't win you a fight, man. You know what I mean? What matters is what takes place in the cage. And Ryan Spann did something to Ion Cutelaba that not a lot of people do, and not a lot of people saw this coming. So much so that Ryan Spann hit on a plus 1,400 submission prop against Ion Cutelaba. Live betting, it was plus 900, but by the time we covered it, it was still plus 1,400. Either way, the Greco-Roman wrestling of Ion Cutelaba, man, it seemed like it was causing Ryan Spann some problems until you forget, oh yeah, this Ryan Spann, 6'4", dude, second tallest dude in the division, he's not just some big brute striker. This dude got jiu-jitsu chops, and he put them on full display. What do you make of this fight, man? It was quick. It was a round. We saw some crisp striking from Spann for a little bit. Ion Cutelaba, wild as ever, like he always is. But his grappling, man, didn't really seem to be sharp, or as sharp as it normally is against Ryan Spann. Was this more of Ryan Spann's defense, or was this Ion Cutelaba a little bit of an off night? What do you think?
I wasn't going to say off night. I was going to say underestimating Ryan Spann.
Yeah,
it's kind of what it looked like. You know, when you walk in there, you think, you know, I'm better than this dude all day, every single day. You know, I'm going in there, and then he shows you a little something. Yeah. Proves you a little something different. You're like, oh, shit. Next you know, I feel like that's the kind of fight that Ion Cutelaba found himself in, and he wasn't necessarily expecting it. Once it's there, though, real hard to deal with, and you can tell submission round one, plus 1,400, especially at the open, man. Not a lot of people are very confident in that submission. I'm sure Ion Cutelaba was one of them where he's thinking, this dude has zero chance of making me tap. I'm good, no problems at all here. Next thing you know, you see that world closing in. Yeah, I was very impressed by the Spann. The whole fight, it was actually really good. A little bit of defense on the ground, shooting hips, man. It was nice.
And it's funny because, I mean, Ion Cutelaba, he did successfully notch 3 of 3 takedowns, like 100% takedown accuracy. You just still end up getting guillotined because you're being that wrestler who's just going in, and, you know, it was actually from the standing position. So it was interesting because Ryan Spann snatched up the standing guillotine and then dropped down to finish the choke, which I thought was a thing of beauty. Total strikes between the two, 7 combined strikes in this fight. So that's why it's like these light heavyweight fights, sometimes they just go in weird ways. You think you have a slobber knocker on your hands, the next thing you know, you got a jiu-jitsu match, a glorified jiu-jitsu match. I thought this was a big win for Ryan Spann, who, I mean, came off a pretty devastating loss to Anthony Smith in his last outing. He got rear naked choked, man. So he lived by the jiu-jitsu, died by the jiu-jitsu, I guess. But at the end of the day, I think this does a good job to propel him. I think we'll be talking about Ryan Spann a little bit more in the future in terms of the light heavyweight division. But for Ion Cutelaba, man, I mean, this is a major setback right here. Let's just take a look at his kind of recent outings. I mean, he is 1-3-1 in his last 5. Lost to Ryan Spann, 2 to Magomed Ankalaev, and then a draw to Dustin Jacoby. His only win in there has been a decision, and it was against Devin Clark. So using his wrestling was definitely a good move, especially in this fight, and I think he can still take him very far. What advice do you have? I'm not going to say technical advice because who are we, right? But I'm just saying, in terms of the game plan, do you think he should stick to this wrestling-heavy game plan, or do you think he should try to step back and try to go back to that incredible Hulk smash style?
Man, I think he needs to stick with the wrestling. Sure, it didn't work out tonight. Sure, Spann got the best of him, but like I said, maybe because he was a little underestimated, you know. So Cutelaba does have a really good ground game, and you don't really want to see him go back to the ways where he's getting knocked out by Ankalaev both in round one. The Hulk smash style works really, really well until everybody figures out that this is all you have, and they can do it, you know, X number of things against it, man. So if I'm with the Cutelaba camp, I'm telling him we stick true, man. We stay to the wrestling. We stay there. Sure, you got caught. It is what it is. It's better than getting caught and getting knocked out. You know? What do you think?
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I agree. I just think that Ion Cutelaba needs to be a little more precise with his shots. I think that was the only thing that was really missing there, is that he was a little reckless with those entries. Like, he was just trying to dive on Spann, and Spann was just a little too athletic, man. He was truly just he was just a quicker athlete. Even though he's a bigger guy, he was the quicker athlete, more athletic dude, and it showed, man. So that's how he was able to lock up the guillotine. And given that it was such a short fight, there's really not much else to talk about other than Ryan Spann also notched a 50K performance bonus, which I think is a little bit of a robbery, because in the fight that we need to talk about next, the people's main event right here, Davey Grant versus Louis Smolka. AJ, first and foremost, how does Davey Grant not walk away with 50K right here? How do they not both walk away with the 50K fight of the night? That is my number one question, because Davey Grant put on a performance, brother. This dude is on the latter half of his 30s. He is closer to 40 than is comfortable for anybody to talk about. And he fought a young Louis Smolka, a young Hawaiian who had only been knocked out, once before, twice before, maybe? And he did something despicable to the man. He just beat him up and down. He boxed him up for 3 rounds. But AJ, Smolka came back in that second round, and he showed that Hawaiian heart right there. He showed some of that I don't even know what you call it, man, but he showed some resilience. He showed some intensity, and he kind of evened up the significant strikes, even though Davey Grant was kind of piecing him up for a bit. By the time the fight ended, 81 significant strikes for Davey Grant, 71 for Louis Smolka. So there was definitely a major comeback on the Smolka side. But brother, the one thing that really confused me is that, given that Smolka is so good on the ground, and Davey Grant is really good on the ground too, right? I thought Smolka would try to attack the ground a little bit more, you know what I mean? Try to go, shoot for the takedown, go for the back, do something. Instead, he chose to have a kickboxing match, and he chose to pull a Aleksandar Rakic and not check a single kick. Brother, how impressive was Davey Grant here?
Man, on the latter side of 30, this dude is looking fucking fierce, bro. Yeah. Fierce out there, and willing to stand in the face of trouble. What's the word I'm trying to say, man? Exhilarance, whatever the word is. Davey Grant was looking incredible, absolutely out there, wild, still strong, still wiry, still has all the aspects that we love about Davey Grant, but you can see him getting better, and which is still mind-blowing, man. And credit to Louis Smolka as well, because you do need that good of a dance partner to have the same kind of fight, because I agree with you. They might not have gotten the 50K bonus in front of the media, but I guarantee Uncle Dana's throwing some kickback their way, because that was one hell of a scrap. I was very excited to watch it. I even had to watch it again just because I was doing some stuff at the time, so I wasn't able to get the full thing, man. But I had to go back and watch the Smolka fight, or the Davey Grant Smolka fight, because it was a lot of fun. I'm shocked. I don't even know what to say, because of the fact that they didn't get the money, man. That was a good fight.
Yeah, man, I'm shell shocked myself right there, given that they didn't get a 50K bonus, because Davey Grant, I think, is one of the nicest guys in MMA, first and foremost, man, and he brings it every single time. Like, he comes to fight. Name a boring Davey Grant fight. You can't, because he doesn't just sit there and play chess with you. You know what I mean? He goes there. I mean, he does play chess, but it's the most violent chess that you've ever seen in your life. Here's the thing about Davey Grant. The thing that I thought was interesting is that coming into this fight, yeah, he's had a couple of finishes recently, right? But you can't let that get into your head too much. You can't decide fights for that reason. So he got the back-to-back TKOs over Martin Day and Jonathan Martinez, loses a decision to Chito Vera, loses a split decision to Adrian Yanez, but then comes back and TKOs Louis Smolka, brother. Like, that's what's so impressive to me, just because it's like, all right, you're now later. So you're how old? 36 years old, right? And you're now becoming a finisher in your career? Like, that's kind of weird. It's kind of like the Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira. It's like age like fine wine, like vino right there. Either way, man, I do think that it is very important to note that for Davey Grant, this is his 4th career knockout. 4th career knockout. Brother has 20 fights, and this is his 4th career knockout. So you got to love to see it, because at the end of the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 3 of his 4 knockouts in his career have come in the last 5 fights. Shout out to Davey Grant, ever dangerous, always dangerous. But once again, Louis Smolka, he was the correct dance partner here. He showed how tough he was. And honestly, I think he would have willed through that fight if his leg didn't give out on him. I think that was literally it. Like, you saw that last kick, he tried to like step on that left leg, and it just couldn't. So this is a thought experiment right here, AJ. If I said, all right, I'm like, do you know who Mr. Beast is on YouTube? The big dude throws all the money and all that good stuff. I got money like him, right? Let's just say hypothetically, I got all this money like him, and I say, AJ, brother, I'm gonna put on a competition. You got to eat 10 leg kicks by Davey Grant, flush, no check, and I'm gonna give you $1 million at the end of the day. Do you think that your leg will be able to handle 10 leg kicks? And, listen, Smolka had all that adrenaline going, all that, man. I just think that's his ultimate torture chamber right there. It's just a leg kick, straight on the calf, every single time. What do you make of it?
Man, straight. Those are the ones that actually hurt and the ones you feel while it's going down, man. I guess my only question is good knee, bad knee. That way, if I can sacrifice the bad knee for the destruction that's about to come and just let it happen, man. Because that's like you said, that's a penalty. That's a punishment right there. Yeah. Just no checking leg kicks. And we still see people that choose not to do it in the fight game for whatever crazy ass reason, man. But yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know what this reminded me of a little bit too, before we get off topic on this one? Davey Grant's leg kicks performance on Louis Smolka, which he kind of went away from for a little while, but then he came back to it in round 3. It reminded me of Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber, when Aldo was just eating up Faber's leg, but it wasn't his calf, it was his thigh, and he was just eating that thing up, man, because Smolka's leg looked like elephantitis, bro. It looked disgusting, and I'm sure that it looks probably even worse right now that he's recovering and all that good stuff, but listen, man, I don't even want it. It's too graphic of images right there. Davey Grant, ever dangerous, TKO round 3. You have to love it. Dana, if you're listening to this right now, and you know you are, you need to give the man some money. Let's just leave it at that. Give the man some money and call it a day. Because the fight of the night actually went to these two right here, brother. And we got a little bit of controversy on our hands. The blonde fighter, number 1 ranked contender in the flyweight division, Katlyn Chookagian. She squeaks out a split decision win against the number 9 ranked in the strawweight division, Amanda Ribas. How does this happen? How does someone move up to fight the number 1 contender in the weight class above and arguably win in the eyes of the fans? Now, AJ, I told you while the mics were cold, you were like, hey, man, what did you think of that? And I was like, well, I thought Chookagian won, and I still think Chookagian won. This is not because I picked her on a points basis for the prop. It's not because I picked her on a money line. It's not because I picked her in general. It's because I think that the criteria for judging in the eyes of the fans especially is so backwards these days, man. When I had to get off Twitter while I was watching the fight because I was like, you people are fucking crazy, like what people were saying. Robbery. Ribas clearly won that fight. 30-27 Ribas. I'm just like, bro, like what fight are y'all watching? What is more effective, AJ? This is the question that we need to answer. This is basically the philosophical inquiry of the day. So what is more important to you in the span of a fight in terms of what you were judging? Is it damage? Is it control? Is it takedowns? Is it effective striking? Like, what is number 1 of all of those 4 things? Damage, control, takedowns, and effective striking. What's the most important in your eyes?
For me, has to be damage, man. Has to be damage. That's what's going on. You getting pieced up, all the time. Your face is getting lumped up. Well, the other guy, he's slick. He's moving. He's not getting touched. To me, that's that, man. That's kind of the next one. After that, I'd say takedowns and then control time. And, then you can, I guess those last ones you can differ a little bit on. But for me, damage. What about you?
But where's effective striking in there? Is it effective striking last? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it second? Because for me personally, I go damage, I go effective striking, and then I go takedowns, and control is last. Control is the last in my book because at the end of the day, the takedown and the control are kind of intertwined, like you said, right? And then you kind of intertwine the damage in there too, because if you get a takedown and you do no damage, well, how big is that takedown? Yes, it counts for something, but does it count as much as you damaged up your opponent, you dropped them or something like that? Like, no, of course not. So damage number 1, number 2 for you, what?
Man, I'd probably, as much as it hurts to say as a striker, I'd say takedowns and control. I think the effective striking comes into play in like a chess match sort of way, almost how control time does for me. You know, if you're on the ground, you're kind of in this chess match battle, sure. Then you go down to control time because it's more of a stalemate. Same thing if you're in a stalemate on the feet in this chess battle, nobody's really landing big damage, but everybody's just kind of pitter-pattering around each other. That's kind of where effective striking lands for me. Okay. I mean, I hate to see somebody just get points on takedowns alone because I don't think that's the case. You should have to damage them or at least hold them down a little bit to make that case stay, to make the points. But I'd say takedowns, man. I think it does as much as, like I said, as much as it hurts, it does impact the fight a lot more.
Well, then let's look at this from a statistical aspect then. Katlyn Chookagian outstrikes Amanda Ribas in terms of significant strikes 63-55, right? Chookagian threw more. She landed more. Ribas threw less, landed less, but she ended up throwing less overall in total strikes and landing more total strikes. So 84-71 in favor of Ribas in terms of total strikes. But who was getting their head popped back the whole fight? Whose face was all busted up at the end of the fight? It was Ribas. You know what I mean? All the big moments in terms of striking, the big moments were in favor of Katlyn Chookagian. There was a couple for Ribas, but all the big moments. I'm talking about the 1-2 down the pipe, boom, heads. That was all Chookagian. 3 of 6 takedowns were successful for Amanda Ribas, with 4 minutes and 49 seconds of control time. Now that counts for something. However, AJ, we got to talk about it because when Amanda Ribas gets Katlyn Chookagian down with that head and arm toss, very Montserrat Ruiz-esque, right? She gets the head and arm, she gets her down. Does she do a lot of damage? Is she doing a bunch of ground and pound? No. Katlyn Chookagian, she gets a hook over, she tries to take the back, she slips out, she gets up, and she gets back to the feet. And that happened literally again, same exact sequence, and then it happened again. So I was just like, okay, if Amanda Ribas had got to mounts and dropped elbows and throwing big ground and pound, yes, of course, that is very meaningful, and that wins you the round. But people were saying that it's a robbery that Ribas lost the fight because, oh, look, she took her down and she controlled her for, almost 5 minutes of the fight. That's a third of the fight, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, yeah, but Chookagian boxed her up the rest of the fight. So if we're talking about a fight, I thought Chookagian won fair and square, and I thought that it was 29-28 in favor of Chookagian. I thought that Ribas stole the third round, but I had Chookagian winning rounds 1 and 2, personally. That's the way that I saw it, because the moments that Ribas had the takedowns, I felt like were overshadowed by Chookagian being able to get back up to her feet and effectively outstrike and land the bigger shots on Amanda Ribas. But once again, AJ, you know my theory, and not my theory, my preference. My preference for judging is if you're going to take somebody down, you have to damage them for it to truly count, to win a round, truly. Unless you're just controlling them the whole entire round, and then obviously there's nothing else the fighter can do. But long-winded rant aside, do you have any issues with the way that I judge the fight? Do you have any issues with my outlook on how this prospective match went down?
There's a couple different things that I like and have a little contention with what you're saying in there, and I'm gonna try to remember them all because the whole damage control thing, I agree, and I see where you're going with the numbers. Amanda Ribas, she did, was the one getting her head snapped back a little bit more, was kind of the one not necessarily controlling the fight on the feet, but she had the pressure. But Chookagian was just looking better in the striking exchanges. Now, that being said, we expected Chookagian to be the longer, the rangier, the one that's doing exactly that to Ribas, and Ribas was willing to walk through that and get it to the inside and then get the takedowns and that control. And to me, as much as that damage of Chookagian was mattering, I think the fact that Ribas knew she had to get on the inside, eat the shots to execute the game plan, matters somewhat a little bit more to me. That's the one nuance in there. Like, did we expect X, Y, and Z to happen, but A, B, and C did? Kind of weighs a little bit more, and that's a hard one to judge. That's a tangible that is very unpalpable. You can't grab that one. Not everybody's gonna feel the same way about that one. And when this fight was going on, man, I watched it the first time. I thought Chookagian won. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay, but I gave Chookagian the second and the third. So opposite of you. I thought Amanda Ribas won the first one. She had more strikes. She was on the front foot. She had the takedown, the control time. The majority of the control time came from that first round. So that's kind of where I had Ribas winning it. Okay. And then I was like, okay, online, everybody thinks Ribas should have won the fight. It was a robbery. Like, okay, let me go back and watch this one again. I watched this one this morning. And I still think Chookagian did enough to win, but because Ribas didn't do enough to win. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like either one of them could have won that fight. Either one of them could have lost that fight. I'm cool with it. However it goes, it just Katlyn Chookagian did a little bit more because I don't count that last takedown and that last flurry, of Amanda Ribas to really matter that much. So I see what you're saying, and I agree with you on that one. Like, yeah, she did get the takedown. Yeah, a little bit extra control time, maybe like 10 more seconds. But then Katlyn Chookagian just got up. There's no real damage there. So I'm in agreement, in contention sometimes, but not really, because I do think the right woman won.
Yeah.
It was just a real interesting fight,
No, I think that's fair. Because we both see it differently. However, at the end of the day, we agree the right person won. Katlyn Chookagian, she got the job done. She gets the win. Like I said, it's guaranteed. Death, taxes, Katlyn Chookagian by decision. I mean, come on. However, fight of the night. Now, I wonder if the odds of Chookagian winning a fight of the night would probably be astronomical, plus 1,000 or something like that. Here's the big question that I have for you. Do you think that Amanda Ribas could have been solidified in a win if she maybe would have gone for some submission attempts? That's the thing that was missing to me. There was no submission attempts, literally, between either fighter. Like, you had her on the ground, at least try to threaten an armbar, threaten a guillotine, threaten something, you know what I mean? But given that you didn't threaten anything, really, and there was like no fear of the fight ending. There was no fight ending sequences on the ground. I thought that was kind of what gave Chookagian the favor too. Either way, this was very, very impressive. But what do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think because Chookagian was defending so well and was threatening to take the back, that's why Ribas wasn't able to get off any submissions.
Yeah.
More credit to Chookagian on that one. It's the same thing that if a takedown, just because your cheeks hit the mat, that means a point. I think it should also be a point when you stand up and you don't let that guy, take you down. It's almost like you go 1 for 1. It's a wash, So
Yeah. No, I feel you. That kind of goes into the Rose Namajunas aspect though, where she's like, shouldn't I get points for playing defense? And it's like, well, no, actually you shouldn't. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play defense. But either way, a win is a win is a win. The blonde fighter gets another one on the board. And listen, split decision win. But either way, we hit on the over. We hit on the money line. This was the guaranteed lock of the night. So we gave you that one. All right, AJ. Now your sleeper, Manuel Roberto Torres. He gets the TKO win on Frank the Crank Camacho, man, and he made it look easy right here, brother. This is the thing that impressed me about Manuel Torres going into this fight. He wasn't starstruck by Frank Camacho. He wasn't in awe, and sometimes that happens to these young fighters. They get in awe of the dude they're fighting against. It happens a lot when Andrei Arlovski fights these young guys, where they just kind of fall into this like trance of like, oh my God, I'm fighting Andre. Like, oh, this is so cool. I don't think that he respected Frank Camacho in the sense where he said, yeah, this dude's powerful. Yeah, he got hands, but I love knocking people out, and I think I got better hands. And what did he do? He said, I'm going to let Camacho overswing. I'm going to slip back. I'm going to hit him with some big hooks. I'm going to hit him with that uppercut. I'm going to hit him with anything that I want to. And at the end of the day, the referee, who I actually do not remember who the referee was going into this fight, but the referee did a mercy stoppage for Frank Camacho. So that's the question. Early stoppage or justified? And I'm going to say justified. And the reason why I say that, AJ, is because you could tell the momentum of the fight. It was one-way traffic at that point. It was all Torres going forward from there. Yes, Frank the Crank is a chiseled vet, and yes, he could sit there and maybe make a comeback, but you don't want to suffer unnecessary brain damage just because you want to appease your ego. How impressive was Manuel Torres in this fight? El Loco with another TKO, brother. What do you make of it?
You're right, man. It did feel like Torres didn't respect Camacho at all, because this dude is swinging from the hips, literally trying to knock the Crank's head into the back row, and with zero remorse for the comeback that was going his way, man. He did not respect the power of Camacho at all, and it showed, man. He was in there. Now to the early stoppage, I thought for a quick second, I was like, man, it seems like Camacho could have came back from that one. But then what did it for me was the way he stood up, and I think it was Herb Dean, and I could be remembering this wrong, but he stands up, looks at Herb like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, oh, I want to protest, but you're right, bud. And even the ref was just like, yeah, you were out, you were gone, So I don't think it was a short stoppage at all. It was a fun fight, and there was a couple times where you could argue that Camacho got tagged, and he might have been out on his feet and just getting reanimated by the next shot that tagged him up.
Yeah, and that's what's scary about it. It goes to show that Torres, he was bigger, he was longer, he was faster, he was stronger, he was everything. He had the advantage in every pursuit of this matchup. And he ended up outstriking Camacho 34-24, but it felt like he outstruck him 40-5 or something like that, the way that the fight was going. All the powerful shots kind of came from Torres. And the thing that was interesting is the way that he throws his hooks is very fascinating to me, because Manuel Torres, he doesn't throw just the short, boom, hook. He whips it all the way around for full maximum velocity at the end of the shot. And I think that's why they were so damaging. But it also leaves openings, brother. And I think going forward, you got to clean it up a little bit because you will get caught in that in-between. A straight shot beats a hook all day long. What is the fastest point from A to B? A straight line, right? So either way, this was the debut, and there's nothing to hang your hat on. This was impressive as hell. He said it's a dream to be in the UFC. He wants to be with the company forever. Clearly, he's in the honeymoon phase. He's starstruck, but I think that over time, this is a dude who can really make some noise in the lightweight division, the stacked lightweight division. This is a dude who I already want to see him fight Ignacio Bahamondes. I think that's the fight to make right there. Maybe not now. Maybe build him up a little bit. But can't you see these two frames and styles clashing head to head, right?
100%, man. When you said that, I was like, yeah, that would be the fight to make, man. It'd be a lot of fun. I agree. Build him up a little bit more, but I could see that one in 2 to 3 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's Mexico versus Mexico too. So, I mean, maybe you don't want that too early, but either way, Manuel, Roberto, Torres, El Loco, he gets another knockout victory. There wasn't much to say other than this was a awesome performance, and he won performance of the night 50K bonus in his debut. You have to love it. Now, AJ, man, for this last main card bout that we're going to be talking about, this is one of them that we had kind of split, right? You had Jake Hadley, I had Allan Nascimento. Now, Nascimento, he definitely gets a boost because he's getting trained by the champion, or the former champion, I guess, Charles Oliveira, lightweight champion. He trains at a Chute box, and he's kind of one of those new wave Chute box fighters that we have, one of the new school Chute box fighters. He lost his UFC debut to Tagir Ulanbekov, a ranked flyweight, and then he gets a UFC debutant in Jake Hadley, who was supposed to be this big talker, big walker, next Conor McGregor or whatever, you know what I mean, former Cage Warriors champion. But Nascimento, he used his experience, he used his submission prowess, man, and he just kind of did whatever he wanted to Jake Hadley in terms of control time, in terms of just, I mean, being the superior fighter, superior grappler, brother, in all aspects of the fight. Spinning kicks, all types of kicks, calf kicks. Brother, Jake Hadley, what happened? Did he not show up, or was this just a rude awakening to the UFC, excuse me?
I think this was Hadley realizing that some people else out there have a lot deeper of a tool belt, man. And there's a couple times when Hadley was on the ground trying to throw up some submissions, feet were moving, he was looking good, he was staying active. And Nascimento was just a step ahead on everything, man, no matter what he was doing. I like the way you said that. Nascimento was just doing what he wanted, man. He was in there controlling it, flowing, vibing. Everything was working just like Nascimento planned. He looked good. He looked good, man. And this was one of the ones I was expecting Hadley to come out a little bit more. And he did. He came out of the gate hot. He was looking good. And then just Nascimento just continued to pour it on. And little by little, finally, that the straws piled up and the camel's back broke. And it was a rough one for Hadley. And I think it was one of those realizations of shit, like, these dudes got a lot to offer. I need to kind of mix it up and see what's going on out there, because Nascimento, for as unknown as he is, looked very, very polished.
Brother, and he dyed the hair blonde. I mean, that's the Shoot the Box Brazilian special right there, man. I mean, I will say this. Jake Hadley did a great job in defending submissions, because even though Nascimento is credited with 0 submission attempts, I mean, he had a knee bar he was working on. He had a heel hook he was working on. He had plenty of different submission attempts. I was so mad because I was just like, man, I'm just looking at this plus 525 submission prop for Nascimento. And I was like, you're coming so close. Like, you're coming so close. But he did the smart thing. He said, I want to win. So what am I going to do? Am I going to really dig in on a submission when I don't really have it? Nah, I'm going to do position over submission, and I'm going to win the fight. And I thought that was impressive. But lest we forget, I mean, Nascimento has won almost 90% or 85% of his fights via stoppage. So that's why I was just like, damn, bro, now you wanted to go for the decision? All right, it is what it is. A win is a win, brother. For Jake Hadley, man, do you see a good rebound in his future? I mean, he has the skills. I just felt like this was kind of a rough fight to give him in his debut. What do you think?
Usually I want to give fighters the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say, yeah, they're going to come back. And after this one, I think Hadley has another rough awakening for him coming forward. And it depends on who they give him. Like, this is one of those ones that I think is going to age very well for Nascimento. And it's going to be one of those ones that kind of stings a little bit for Hadley, because, like that one's going to hurt.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. So 9 minutes and 27 seconds of control time for Nascimento. Outstruck Hadley 36-26, man. I mean, significant strikes 19-8. So it was very much like a jiu-jitsu match right there. But this was a big win. So Charles Oliveira, he gets a win last week against, or was it last week? Yeah, he gets the win last week against who did he fight, man? Why am I blanking? Oliveira, Gaethje. There we go. He gets the submission on the most violent man in MMA right now, and then he comes back, coaches, and gets a win for Allan Nascimento. You have to love it. Shoot the Box is rolling high right now. And with that being said, that is your main card recap, folks. However, you know what time it is. You know we need to talk about the prelims. There's only a couple, but there were some good ones. AJ, brother, the reason why this is important right here is because this man is overlooked, hasn't won a fight in almost 6 years in his respective division, but came back and knocked the socks off of Alan Patrick. And I'm talking about Michael Johnson, brother. The dude who arguably, this is a quote that I saw on Twitter, and I thought that it was funny. It's a little disrespectful, but I think that it kind of matches the tone. Michael Johnson is like the greatest, worst fighter ever. You know what I mean? And we say that in the terms of like he's so good, but it's not a Michael Johnson fight unless he starts out sharp, looks like a world beater, and then instantly gets rocked right after. And that's literally what happened in the Patrick fight. He starts out sharp, looking like a sharpshooter, fast hands, gets rocked. It's like, oh, God, here we go again. However, he gets back, you know what I mean? Alan Patrick, I think he takes him down. Let me just double check to make sure that I'm right on that. No, Patrick was 0-5 on his takedown. So either way, Michael Johnson, he recovers, comes to the second round. They boxing it up. Patrick is getting caught with left hands after left hand after left hand on these wild entries, and Michael Johnson does what Michael Johnson does best, man. He pieces it up to the body, works his way back up to the head, left hook from hell, and he stiffs Alan Patrick, leaves his body stiff on the canvas. Not only notches his first win since 2018, but like I said, his first win in the lightweight division since 2016, brother. The last time that he defeated somebody in the lightweight division was Dustin Poirier, man. He knocked him out in the first round, and I believe in Texas. It was a fight out there in Texas, man. Knocked out Poirier, comes back, knocks out Patrick. You gotta love it. Big win by Michael Johnson. Sharp, dude. He's one of the best strikers, but he did say, AJ, and I want you to comment not only on the fight, but on this as well. He said that he wasn't just fighting for his job, he was fighting for his life. This is what he felt like. He says everything in his life went down. The money went down. The friends went down. The fans went down. Basically, the rise and fall, the tragic rise and fall that comes with celebrity, that comes with fame. So what do you make of this whole entire situation for Michael Johnson?
Man, the hero's journey. It's a tale, literally, people have been writing about exactly that for eons, man. And unfortunately, Michael Johnson, he's going to have to dig through his own story. But I'm glad to see this dude's back on the come up because he is very much so one of the more deserving lightweights out there, but just being real slept on by everybody, man. For the longest time, Johnson was a scary fighter that you don't want to see across, but not somebody the fans were excited to watch and draw that ticket. So it's good to see that he's coming back, getting the knockouts. He's a really good fighter, man, and impressive outing the entire time. Like you said, it's good to see the man with the hands back again, Johnson looking strong. But I'm excited to see where he goes because he is – how old is he? I don't even have it pulled up.
Michael Johnson, brother. I mean, it looks like he is 35 years old.
I was going to say has to be on the later end of 30s-ish. So still has a decent amount of time to make a run. But in the 155, it's going to be rough. But it's good to see him kind of coming back into that action.
Absolutely. So shout out to Michael Johnson, man. You always love to see an OG veteran like him get another win back on the board. He's 21-17, my man, and 12-14 in the UFC. So under 500 record. But listen, man. Yeah, I mean, he had a great performance. Now, in other news, man, and a little bit of a downward tone, I guess we could say. Viviane Araujo, she gets the big win against Andrea Lee. And this was one where I wasn't sure. In the first round, they was going back and forth. Man, it looked like it was going to be a real scrap. But Araujo does what she does best. And she's just the bigger, stronger, more dominant fighter with a little more will in her. And normally, gas tank is a little bit of an issue. Cardio is a little bit of an issue. But she was able to put a pressure and a pace on Andrea Lee that kind of gassed her out come the latter rounds. Now, the big takeaway is that Araujo, I guess, word on the street is she performed a little bit of a dirty tactic and she stuck her thumb in Andrea Lee's eye. Now, is this true? I haven't watched the film back, so I'm not sure. But her coach, current UFC bantamweight Tony Kelly, he's caught a little bit of fire, some flack, some flames, brother, because of some distasteful words that came out of his mouth. And, here we're not a proponent of, getting your feelings hurt by words, man. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I was taught that as a young child, and I still believe it today. However, he did say some unsavory things. We need to talk about it. Tony Kelly, he more or less made note that, hey, This is in reference to the dirty eye poke. This is what they do, quote unquote. This is what the dirty Brazilians do. They're cheaters, da 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 da. And this is something we're talking about off air, where I was saying, well, do Brazilians more or less have a history of some dirty tactics in mixed martial arts history? Yes, but doesn't every other ethnicity have a group of people doing some dirty shit in there too? Like literally, once you get in there, all is fair unless the judge calls, or unless the referee calls it, right? So at the end of the day, is Tony Kelly too off base? No, not necessarily, but I think that his delivery was terrible. Given that this is a white dude with Andrea Lee, who they're saying that now Nazi lovers and all that, you know what I mean? It's all around the board. This is just a messy situation, brother. But I need your take on this, man. All is fair in love and war. How are you going to get your feelings hurt over some words when you're punching each other in the face is my question first and foremost. But at the end of the day, there is a line that should not be crossed, right? And you should not be stereotyping an entire ethnicity of people based on the actions of just a few. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that done to them. What do you make of this situation? Racist is what's being called out for Tony Kelly. We know he's a great fighter, and we don't want to take people's words out of context, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is a story. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I agree, Derick, and nobody wants that done to them, and I think that's more so the biggest concern that I have over everything. You don't need to begrudge an entire civilization and race and culture just because it's true. That there are some people that cheat a little bit more than others, but honestly, you can take that subset of any culture at all, whether Brazilian, Black, Chinese, Hispanic, doesn't matter. White, there's white people out there that jam their thumbs in people's eyes as well, man, and it's not just because of their race behind it. So you want to win, and that's all fair and love and war in there. And I think the best way, the best thing is Tony Kelly just has to answer for what he said. It's not like he's saying he's gonna eat their hearts out or whatever the case. There's things that have been said in the UFC that it's a bad guy business. And sometimes when you get that mic time, you get the chance. That's what you want to put out and be part of your world. More power to you, because that's a rough one to have to fight against, especially in 2022 when everybody's trying to cancel you. And with a name like KGB Lee for your girlfriend, he's defending a lot of heat right now, man. So I'm not too offended by it. I don't think anyone shouldn't read into it too much. It is what it is, and sometimes imagine I take it from a coaching perspective. I see somebody jamming their thumb into my player or fighter's eyes. I'm gonna be a little upset. I'm probably gonna say some out of pocket shit. Yeah. Now, nonetheless, it's my girl. Oh yeah, I'm definitely calling racism. I'm going to 10. I'm probably wrong, 100% wrong, but I'm still going to 10. You gotta love it.
Yeah, no, I got you, man. And I think that at the end of the day, the karmic justice is that, well, Andrea Lee lost pretty definitively to Viviane Araújo. So that is kind of the icing on the cake right there. You got the job done, you got the win, and at the end of the day, they go home with half their check. So that is the way that you get back there. No need for external retribution or anything like that. But it is a story, and I do want to say the beautiful thing that I thought was that Araújo and Andrea Lee, because this is not between either of them, they ended the fight very cordially. They hugged it out, all that good stuff. So you got to love it. It ended up in a happy story, right? So with that being said, that was a big win by Viviane Araújo. Now, AJ, man, my sleeper, Virna Jandiroba versus Angela Hill, ended up being much more of a classic striker versus grappler matchup than I wanted it to be. This is one of those things where you pick because you're such a fan of these fighters. I'm such a fan of both of these fighters, but the Angela Hill days as of late, man, I mean, she's just getting bad matchup after close fight after close fight. But Virna Jandiroba, she held her own on the feet. But the reason why is because she's such a high-level grappler that she could do anything she wants. She froze the striker. It happens time and time and time again. She outstruck Angela Hill 92-44, but significant strikes. Angela Hill outstruck Jandiroba 21-14. Interesting right there. What was impressive to me is that Angela Hill was able to defend multiple submission attempts by Virna Jandiroba. That was the most important thing. However, Jandiroba did note that she suffered a knee injury that she had to battle through in the first round of their fight. At the end of the day, Angela Hill is 13-12 in her MMA career. She's under 500 in the UFC. I'm hoping that she doesn't get cut. I'm hoping that she still has a couple more fights on her contract, that they're going to give her an easier matchup a little bit. But we have to say the talks of title contention for Angela Hill they've probably come to a close at this point, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, she's almost relegated to that gatekeeper position, and it's rough because she really is having a lot of good looks, but just really hard opponents. And while this fight was going on, all I can think, and I want your opinion on why this is, but it seems as though when you have that specialized, devastating ground game that Avina Jandiroba does, you like you said, you can have that ground game and do whatever you want on the feet because of that ground game. Why is it not the opposite? Why is it because Angela Hill is such a good striker, she can go around and mess around with that? Like it seems so outweighed in the fact that because the ground game is so dangerous, that's the one that's always leading the dance. But it isn't weighed that way in the judge's eyes. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like there's a clear juxtaposition in that. And what do you think? It came to my mind again when you were talking about it right there, but it made me think about it in the fight as well. What do you think?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, you're saying that how come Angela Hill isn't able to have her way with Jandiroba more, or that? So can you rephrase it for me?
And why is no striker out there have the same kind of confidence that a grappler does in their ground game? Any grappler can go out there and do whatever the hell they want on their feet because they know, I get taken down, I'm fine. Why is it not the same for a striker? Why can a striker go out there, start working some takedown stuff, start doing this, and then eventually say, oh, fuck it, I'm going to stand up and we're just going to bang it out. Like I always got this in my back pocket. Like,
Yeah.
why is it not the same? Because it's weighed in the opposite of the judges. The judges see the other way,
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I'm not too sure, man. I just know that the threat of being held on your back for the better half of a round, you know what I mean, and not being able to get back up is probably the main fear for a lot of these strikers who aren't able to implement the game plan. Because that's the thing for Angela Hill, was she able to get back up to her feet? Yeah, ultimately, but you lose all that control time. I mean, for Jandiroba, it was 7 minutes of control time, right? So even though Angela Hill was able to get back up to the feet and say, all right, let's get back into boxing range and get after it, it just went to show that, listen, you couldn't open up because every time you open up, Jandiroba was shooting for that single, you know what I mean? So it's like, all right, I can't open up on my strikes. I just kind of have to play this chess match. I'm losing the chess match. I'm getting taken down. I'm defending, but does that count for anything? No, not necessarily. I mean, it's just a rough look, man. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question, but I'm really not too sure because I think that this is like Mackenzie Dern-esque, right? Mackenzie Dern, now that her hands are getting nice, she's really becoming a problem because she's like, I could take you down whenever I want. I'm going to rush forward because if you take me down, great. That's where I want to be anyways. And if you don't take me down, well, great, I'll knock your head off. So it's a tough spot for these strikers, and I think that it goes to show that you have to enter MMA now with a good grappling base, because Angela Hill, lest we forget, she came in with a Muay Thai base and then learned how to grapple like on the fly. So she's like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, man. You're fighting one of the best black belts in jiu-jitsu in MMA right now in Jandiroba. I think she did a pretty damn good job. So big moral victory for Angela Hill, but moral victories do not count in your paycheck, and they do not count on your MMA record. So I will say that. Now, AJ, last couple ones that we need to talk about. Tatsuro Taira, he gets the win over Carlos Candelario. This was just a great UFC debut, man. He did kind of whatever he wanted, had him in deep waters a couple of times, ended up not squeaking out. It was a pretty unanimous decision. It was like 30-27 times 2 and a 30-26. But this was just a great win. Japan has a new rising prospect, in the UFC ranks. You got to love it, because this is very similar to, and I'm blanking on her name. I'm not sure why. Kanako Murata, I think that's the judoka in the UFC right now, I think.
There's a couple on the rise. I think
because Kana Watanabe, she's in Bellator and she's a judoka as well, and I don't know if she's Japanese or not, but either way, these are like some of the people that are coming out right now. But we don't have a lot of strikers, right, that are really making it happen in the UFC, and I think that Taira is going to be one of those guys. He's got good grappling too, so this was just a big win for him. Keep an eye out on that guy. But lastly, AJ, and this is the shortest bout of the night, but this is probably the most high stakes for one of these fighters, Andre Petroski, man, in a fight where it seemed like he was coming out tight, he seemed like he was coming out clunky. Nick Maximov shoots in for a takedown, which, I mean, he just, in his last fight, he tied Marvin Vettori for the middleweight record in 11 takedowns in one fight. Shoots for a takedown. He gets sprawled on, front choke position, gets darsed and put to sleep immediately. Actually, it wasn't even a darce, it was an anaconda, excuse me. He gets anaconda'd and put to sleep. Anaconda is one of my favorite submissions that you could land. I'm grateful that I've been able to land one in competition, man, So when you get it and you lock it in, there's not much somebody can do, especially when Petroski, who is a specialist with that move, sinks down on that and then really puts all his weight into it. You're going to sleep, and that's exactly what happened to Nick Maximov. Given that the dude was 8-0, given that he's a Nate Diaz prodigy, given that Nate Diaz said that Nick Maximov would easily handle Khamzat Chimaev, this is a pretty major blow. What'd you make of this?
This is a massive blow, man. This is one of the ones that this is so much more impactful than is being said by the rest of the people. Because I thought Maximov could have been a player for a very long time in the UFC. One of these dudes that you see walk around. He's not necessarily boisterous or braggadocious or anything, but he has the skills to be that kind of guy, to be that kind of star. Comes around, Petrosky puts him to sleep. Absolutely mind blown, man. And like I said before, I said this fight has the potential to be a snoozer. This fight has the potential because these two dudes are so good on the ground. This fight can possibly be not as exciting as we are going to say. Boy, was I wrong, and I'm happy I'm wrong on this one because that was a hell of a fight. Even though it was the shortest fight of the night, very impressive that Petrosky was able to do that with how talented Maximov is, man. I think this is one of those ones that's going under noticed by a lot of casuals out there because Petrosky, because he came off of that the Dana White contender or no, the Ultimate Fighter, excuse me. Yeah. He's doesn't have a lot of respect, you know. Like a lot of people think he shouldn't be here fighting, and then you go and you put somebody to sleep like Nick Maximov. Super impressive, man. What do you think?
I think it's also impressive because he got pretty pieced up by Brian Battle, the Ultimate Fighter 29 winner, right? He got pieced up by him pretty bad. Comes back, he actually gets the UFC shot, and he's doing work, man. He's doing work. He maintains 100% finish rate. I think it was Zhu Rong that he got the finish over. It was like an arm triangle in his last fight or whatever, and then now you get the Anaconda on Maximov, brother. I mean, stock is going up. That's all I got to say. The stock is going up in the middleweight division for Andre Petrosky. So shout out to that, man. And that is your prelim pour-over. That is all the fights. We've covered all the fights. We hit the money lines. We hit the wagers. We hit the parlays, the props, the whole nine. Fun fights, folks. Fun fights. Now, AJ, brother, I think that now that we've done all of this, it's time to take a little trip to the lightweight division, brother, or the light heavyweight division, excuse me. We need to talk, brother, a little bit about Ryan Superman Spann, right? This is the question that I have for you. Given that this light heavyweight division is in flux, Aleksandar Rakic, I have him at number 2 in my rankings. You have him at number 4. He just lost. He's going to have to take a bump back. Blachowicz, clearly the number 1 contender. I guess for the moment, he earned it, man. He stays at number 1. But then you got this dude that's just chilling in the back of the rankings who is, let's just say, creeping up a little bit, man. He's a force to be reckoned with in Ryan Spann. He is ranked number 13 by the UFC. I have him ranked number 13 in my rankings, and you have him ranked number 12 in your rankings. But we have to ask ourselves a question here. You have the Paul Craigs, the Dominic Reyes, Nikita Krylov, Thiago Santos, who I think probably is a little too highly ranked in my rankings right now for what he's been doing as of late. You have these names, right? Anthony Smith, Yuri Prochazka, Magomed Ankalaev. Where does Ryan Spann truly rank? Yes, given the opportunities that he's had, he's ranked to number 13 in my book, right? But given his true talent and what we saw on display on Saturday night, I mean, hands was looking sharp, frame is incredible, guillotine ready to go, submission ready, guard ready, jiu-jitsu ready. If he fought Paul Craig, do you think, and number 9 ranked Paul Craig in my rankings, but number 8 in the UFC rankings, do you think he can get a win on Paul Craig?
Man, To answer your question right off the bat, no. Because there's a couple in there that I do think, at least in my rankings, that Thiago Santos, that Nikita Krylov, I feel like those are just a little too high ranked now that I'm looking at it with a fresh set of eyes. I think Spann can get it on those two, but against somebody, a specialist like Paul Craig, who's going to be that good on the ground, who's consistently always hunting and willing to put himself into situations that are more advantageous to him in the specialized aspect that he has of the ground game. I think it's a very hard fight going forward for Ryan Spann.
Okay, how about we take another step back? Jamal Hill, number 10 across the board in all of our rankings. You don't think he can get past Jamal Hill?
More of a chance, yes, but I still almost favor Hill in that one because of how he performs. Now, those 4 fighters that I'm talking about. You can see on mine from number 7 down to number 10, the Thiago Santos, the Nikita Krylov, the Paul Craig, the Jamal Hill. I just think in my own, those should be flipped. Okay. So take the bottom 2, put them to the top 2, and then right in the middle of those, that's where I feel like Ryan Spann lives. Okay. Right, kind of still in that top 10 area. Can get some past some people, can on other ones, but not necessarily one of those killers that's going to be up there with the Anthony Smiths, those kind of fighters. What do you think?
If I'm being honest, man, there's a dude who I think that he has a potential to be able to defeat that you have ranked pretty highly in your rankings, like incredibly highly. I don't have him ranked as high. and I'm talking about the destroyer, Dominic Reyes. I think that Ryan Spann could get past Dominic Reyes, and if he can get past number 3 in your rankings, I mean, that says something. However, given the nature, it's just matchups make fights, right? Styles make fights, and that's the dangerous nature of MMA is that look at Amanda Ribas, almost beats the number 1 contender in the division up from her, right? So it's like, could she beat some of the other people a little bit lower? Maybe not, but she almost got past Chookagian. So for me, I think that he could beat Dominic Reyes. Yeah, you're right. Paul Craig, it might be a little harder. Jamal Hill might be a little bit harder, but I think ultimately Ryan Spann, given that he's number 13, he will be receiving somewhat of a boost, even though Ion Cutelaba was not ranked going into this fight. So are you saying that he's a perennial 8 to 10, kind of? Or are you saying 10 to 12?
I'm thinking that 8 to 10 range right now. I used to think that 12 to 15, 10 to 12, somewhere in there. But Ryan Spann's growing, man. He's getting better. He looks sharp in there. I'm in my mind, that 8 to 10 feels about right for Ryan Spann. What do you think?
I absolutely agree, and I just think that we need to see him pass another test in order to really justify moving him up a little bit more. But either way, Ryan Spann, he's a bad man, but to be top 10 in your division, I mean, that means that give it a couple of years, brother, and it's only a matter of time until we see top 5, top 3, all that good stuff. I have high hopes for Ryan Spann. So that is your rankings review for UFC Vegas 54. And now, AJ, let's get into a little bit of fighter of the night.
Right now, there is not a man on this planet that can stop me inside this octagon.
The celebration is more work than the fight.
Fighter of the night.
All right, brother. So there's a lot of places that you can go, even though there was only 11 bouts, right? A lot of people put on some star-studded performances, had the intangibles, had the great storylines, not just the win, not just the performance, but everything intertwined that made it a massive, memorable performance. And AJ, brother, I want to know, just off the bat, before you even go into it, just tell me the name of who your fighter of the night is for UFC Vegas 54.
Man, I'm going with Andre Petroski, Derick.
Okay, you're going with Andre Petroski. I thought for a second we might have the same one, but that's actually a really good one. I'm glad you did this one because I'm going to be honest. I'm going with Michael Johnson for mine, brother. So why not you give your Andre Petroski spiel first, and I'll talk about Michael Johnson in a second.
Why I'm going Andre Petroski is because of the fact that this man was doubted. I doubted him. Like I said before, man, I've said it to ad nauseum at this point. I thought this fight was going to be a snoozer. He was the biggest betting underdog on the card, has the fastest finish, man. Minus 1,200 to open up the books. Nobody thinks this dude's going to win. Everybody's a Maximov fan. You know, the Nate Diaz army's going crazy anytime this dude fights. And sure enough, next thing you know, you're putting him to sleep. He's waking up realizing that his O is gone while you're out there screaming to the fans that who's the best wrestler in the world. And you're the man at the point, bro. And that... Why I decided to go with Andre Petroski on this one is because of the doubt that he was faced going in before. Because I know it wasn't just me on this episode. There's a lot of the fans out there and a lot of the locker room in the UFC that doesn't give the Ultimate Fighters a lot of respect, man. They don't have a lot of the clout that goes in there until they really prove themselves. And to me, this is one of those proving fights that Petroski had. This is one of the ones where everybody thought, this was going to be a very technical match. Petroski's outmatched. He doesn't really, deserve to be in there with the likes of Maximov. Maximov, a lot of people, like you said, Nate, I forget if it was Nate or it was Nick, was saying that Maximov can beat Hazmat. Now Petroski comes in, man, and steals all that heat, all that shine. Like I said, the biggest betting underdog on the card and has the fastest submission and puts Maximov to sleep before he could even tap. Before the guy who's so good on the ground doesn't or knows what to do, he's already sleeping. He's snoozing. You're up there shouting, man. I like the fact that Petroski went about the way he went about winning the fight, but also, showed that it meant something to him, that he cared a little bit. He was screaming, man. I like that. It pumps people up, gets me excited for all those reasons. That's why Andre Petroski is my fighter of the night. What do you think, Derick? What do you like? What do you think about the pick? And then hit me with yours.
Well, listen, clearly that's a great pick. Andre Petroski, very much doubted, right? This is a dude who even was doubted coming off of the Ultimate Fighter. You know what I mean? People didn't believe in him after he lost to Brian Battle, all that good stuff. This dude was supposed to be this crazy finisher. Gas tank was the issue. But he comes in and he says, hey, man, the front choke is my specialty in terms of my position. That is what I love to do. And I agree. I love the front choke position as well because there's so many variations. You can take the back. You can go for darts, anaconda, all the good stuff. Move to an arm bar. It doesn't matter. But that's the ultimate thing right there is Andre Petroski is just kind of surprising us time and time again. He's saying, I had to look in the dictionary to find out what underdog meant because I don't know what that means, So in his head, he's probably already a champion in his head, and that's the mentality you need to have. So I thought that was a great pick, man. Shout out to Andre Petroski. But for mine, obviously, I have to talk about Michael Johnson once again because this is a dude who is a legend in the game. I think that people, especially some of the newer fans, right, the people who only came around in the last couple of years, some of the people who only know who Khabib and McGregor are, right, they don't really give justice to Michael Johnson. This is a dude who has fought a killer's row of fighters. So I'm just going to go down a little bit of a list. This is a dude who has fought the Joe Lozons, the Gleason Tebows, Melvin Gilliards, Edson Barbosa, Benil Dariush, Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje, Darren Elkins, Andre Fili, Artem Lobov, Josh Emmett, Stevie Ray, Thiago Moises, Clay Guida, Alan Patrick, AJ. I just listed off those names. Michael Johnson fought all of those dudes consecutively. Brother, consecutively. So this is a man who is not scared to fight anybody. Has a win over El Kukui, Tony Ferguson himself. This dude actually hurt Khabib, had Khabib in hot water before, obviously Khabib did what Khabib does. Hurt Justin Gaethje before Justin Gaethje put it on Michael Johnson. I mean, this is a dude who is the biggest what if in the UFC, because if he could have maybe really zigged when he should have zagged, you know what I mean? Like if he would have zagged when he should have zigged, however you want to say it, if he would have just took a different step in the right way in the multiverse, this could be the champion. This could be the dude who we're talking about as one of the baddest men on the planet. And he is one of the baddest men on the planet when he shows up. He's very Khalil Roundtree Jr.-esque, given that you never know which Michael Johnson is going to show up. Is it the classic Michael Johnson, the fierce boxer Michael Johnson, or is it the no chin Michael Johnson, or is it the I'm not focused Michael Johnson? You never know. But when you've basically been a guaranteed counted out, you know what I mean? When you're guaranteed to have been counted out, when you've lost all the friends, when all the people hitting you up, they always say, fighters will be like, after my fights, when I win, my inbox is getting blown up. I have so many messages, but when I lose, I get like 4 or 5 messages. You know what I mean? That is the epitome of that for the Michael Johnson situation, where everyone leaves you dry, man. You're not the guy anymore. Now he had to come back and prove that he was the guy. Imagine the ego check that it takes after fighting the killer's row that I just mentioned, and you're now the underdog against Alan Patrick. Like, imagine, you know what I mean, how you must feel on the inside. So it felt good for him to get one back. It felt good for him to, get a classic Michael Johnson knockout-esque performance that he had. And it felt good to me to know that the new fans now need to go back and do their homework on Michael Johnson, because he just reminded everybody. He said, y'all must have forgot Michael Johnson edition, brother. So he is my fighter of the night. 21-17, like I said. He's got 9 knockouts, 2 submissions, been submitted a lot in his career. But he always finds a way to come back, brother, and you have to love to see it. So that is my fighter of the night. What do you make of that, AJ?
Man, you have to love to see it, Derick. And I like what you said there when the biggest what-if fighter in the UFC, he had his moments where he could have been great. Yeah. Just unfortunately fell really short. But now I think the biggest question is, what if Michael Johnson actually comes back and makes a run? Still one of the biggest what if fighters out there, but now the cards are looking a little bit better for him, man. I'm glad you highlighted him as the fighter of the night, because I agree. I like that pick a lot, man.
Absolutely. Got to pay homage to those who paved the way for you. So with that being said, that's enough for the fight of the night, and we'll get into the last segment, our word on the street, brother. So word on the street is that Tony Ferguson, he says that he's been reborn. He is a new man now that he's got his head knocked into the bleachers by Michael Chandler, and he's ready to join a team now. He says, quote unquote, and I'll pull it up right here, actually, AJ. Boom. He said, I got knocked the fuck out. I don't want that shit to ever happen again. It could have been one that, could have been prevented, and 2, should have had him finish in the first round. As soon as I knocked him down, the little basics that I could have did to make sure that I could have got out the first round and everybody would be kissing my ass, but God works in mysterious ways, and he's not ready yet, son. I mean, come on, classic El Kukui. He's not ready yet, son. Only so much humility the man can go through, but ultimately, Tony Ferguson, who is almost 40 years old, is now talking about being a reborn man and wanting to come for that title, that strap. You got to love the mentality, but humility, logic, reality, sometimes those things get blurred a little bit. And I love the mentality, but I don't know how much that can come to fruition given, where El Kukui is at in his career. What do you think of this?
Love the mentality, but is the reality actually there for the chance? I mean, he gets in with a camp like fight ready. You never know. You never know, man. And if El Kukui can actually, I think, and this is with a lot of people, I think the biggest obstacle in El Kukui's way, in Ferguson's way, is himself. Yeah. His mental and the way he goes about his things. But the fact that he's willing to be able to take a step back, be coached, be part of a team, be part of something else that is greater than yourself, speaks volumes. I wish the best for him. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all you can do. You can just kind of wish the best for these people. But El Kukui, man, I mean, it's just, I mean, like I said, love the mentality, but is the reality there? I don't know. All right, AJ. So we had a little bit of Bellator action. Bellator 281 happened in London this weekend, right? And we had a couple of big stories. One was that Paul Daly, Semtex, man, a dude who's got the best left hand in the world, he gets a knockout in his final fight. And it wasn't the left hand, brother. It was the right hand. The right hand did some damage, brother. But this was a fight where Paul Daly was getting exposed, classic Paul Daly style. You get grapple fucked for all of, you know what I mean, the entirety of the fight until he says, jiu-jitsu isn't real. I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to knock you out. And that's exactly what he did. So that's not much of a story. I just wanted to kind of point that out. Shout out to Paul Daly. I mean, you can't be a true bona fide MMA fan in terms of the generation that we come from without understanding the importance of Paul Daly. Am I right?
Oh, 100%, man. Simtex is the real deal. And it's unfortunate because he's one of those ones as well, almost a Michael Johnson-esque, where a lot of people slept on it, man. A lot of people, they were attracted to the MVP styles, but did they know Simtex has been doing it since that, those style of fighters were basically in their diapers.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of MVP, he got opportunity, brother. He got an opportunity for the 170-pound interim championship against Logan Storley. And he dropped the ball, brother. He got wrestle fucked. I said it. I think I said it going into the preview show. I was like, he's going to fight Logan Storley, and he's going to get wrestle fucked, and he's going to lose because he's fighting a wrestler. And guess what? You can have all this high-flying, striking, amazing bravado, but when you're fighting a wrestler, brother, you better get your wrestling defense up. And it didn't really seem to happen this time around. Now, Logan Storley doesn't seem to be in favor with the boss, Scott Coker. Dana White basically has pulled this a couple of times. I don't remember the last time it was. I don't think Oliveira was one of them. But basically, there's been a couple times where it felt like Tyron Woodley, for an example. It seemed like Dana White just didn't want him to be his champion in the welterweight division. Just didn't want him. He felt like he was boring. He felt like he wasn't exciting, right? Had a bunch of snoozers that he was putting on as a champion. Well, Scott Coker thinks that Michael Venom Page beat Logan Storley at 281 because you can't just lay on somebody. Now, AJ, brother, I need to know how you feel about this, because we were talking about this just a second ago, right? You can take someone down all you want, but if you're not really doing anything with the takedown, what does it mean? So Scott Coker says, I honestly thought that MVP won that fight against Logan Storley. I was talking to my guys back home, and they go, look, it's close, but we think MVP won. And I say, why do you say that? They said, because half the round he was striking, the other half you can't just lay on somebody. You're not doing any damage. You're not getting any closer to a submission. You're not creating any threat. You're just laying on somebody. And to me, that's not MMA. Big words by the boss, Scott Coker, brother. He just basically said, all you wrestlers, you're not even fighting MMA. You guys are just fucking cuddling out there. I mean, given that the boss of your promotion would say something like this, which is a pretty outlandish thing to say, you would think that the man knows MMA a little bit, because that is part of mixed martial arts, not boxing, not kickboxing, but mixed martial arts, right? For him to say that, brother, I thought that was just kind of wild. And I don't know how I would feel if I was your champion, Logan Storley, or if I was a wrestler, a high-level wrestler, like an Austin Vanderford in your division. Like, I don't know how I would feel. How do you feel about this?
Man, I would expect the guy that's writing the checks in the second biggest MMA organization to know that the mixed part of mixed martial arts, it does include wrestling. And it is a very impactful and challenging aspect of the sport we love, man. And, yeah, as much as I agree, you can't just hold somebody down and hold them there, lay and pray. And like you said, Derick, wrestle fuck him to death. At the end of the day, that guy didn't get up. It's your turn to decide that jiu-jitsu isn't real and stand up and knock this dude out a la Michael Johnson style. Yeah. But if you can't do that, then it looks like you're getting fucked on. So I it's mind blowing that Coker would say something like that, because you're not instilling faith in the people that are fighting for you, because technically they, as much as they are fighting for themselves, they're fighting for you and Bellator as a whole to keep the prosperity going. Wild that he would basically turn his back on more than half the division, or more than half his roster, excuse me.
Yeah, and given that he says that, this is the last part that I thought was interesting. He said, to me, all these fighters, not just what you saw tonight, but they're at the very high level of what they do, they owe it to themselves. They owe it to the audience. They owe it to the fans to have to continue and get better at the disciplines that they're not strong in. And that's what I would tell Logan if he was here. Hey, you're a great wrestler. Now time to be a great striker, a great submission fighter, and get your submission game together. And it has to be more than just wrestle somebody, which... It's like being like, Khabib, bro, you're too good at wrestling. You need to become a knockout artist now. Like, stop. You can't win this way. And he's the greatest for a reason, right? So I just think it's a little bit of a insanity, ludicrous in the eyes of anybody who takes this sport seriously. But just because we think that way doesn't mean that, you know, Scott Coker isn't entitled to his opinion, man. It is a free country after all, or so they say. All right, AJ, that is your word on the street, brother. And with that being said, man, next week we have a fun card to look forward to. We have the Preacher's Daughter back in action fighting Katlyn Vieira, man. This is going to be a fun fight. This is going to be a very, very fun fight in the women's bantamweight division. It's been a little minute since we've seen Holly Holm. I think she had to overcome a little bit of an injury, some of that good stuff, but it's always good to see the New Mexico staple, the New Mexico, you know what I mean? Kind of adopted New Mexico's daughter right there. I don't know, how would you call it? I don't even know where Holly Holm's from. Do you know where she's from? She's not from New Mexico, is she?
I don't think she's from New Mexico, but I know a lot of people in New Mexico call her a native as well. I feel like she's earned that title because she reps it hard, man. She does. She reps the land of enchantment very hard, and back home, a lot of people love Holly Holm, man. It's going to be a really fun fight next week, and I'm excited because she has a dog in front of her. And the nice thing about Holly Holm and the state of New Mexico, man, shout out to all the homies. When you're put up against, you know, adversity, that's the time to shine, and that's what we do best back there, man. And Holly Holm steps up to the occasion all the time.
Absolutely, brother. So real quick before we get out of here, I just wanted to do a little bit of a highlight just to kind of like showcase what are we getting ourselves into next week, right? So we have Holly Holm versus Katlyn Vieira, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michel Paeta. That's going to be a fun fight. Chute and Jaquani versus Dusko Todorovic. Somebody better keep their chin down or someone's going to sleep. Polyana Viviane versus Tabitha Ricci. Baby Shark, man. Baby Shark back in action. That'll be fun. The Iron Turtle Jun Young Park versus Eric Anders, your boy. Let's see what else we got. Jailton Almeida versus Parker Porter. Let me just tell you this one right now. This is a heavyweight bout because Almeida couldn't get a fight at 205. Someone's going to sleep. I'm just going to say that. Let's see. Eros Medic versus Omar Morales. That's going to be a fun fight. What else we got? Chase Hooper, Felipe Corrales, and then Sam Hughes and Elise Reed. Quick comeback for Sam Hughes. It's going to be very, very fun. But the big one that I want to definitely take away, Michel Paeta versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. That has banger alert written all over it. And lastly, AJ, I just want your reaction very quickly because that just reminded me. There was two fighters who have been removed from the UFC's rankings pool. One of them was expected, Marlon Moraes. He's already retired, right? So that's it. He's removed. The other one came out of left field, and I hope that we get further analysis, but I'm just going to leave this here, and I want a quick reaction from you. Gregor Gillespie, the gift, removed from the UFC's rankings pool. So I'm wondering if there's been some contract dispute or something, because this is literally one of the baddest dudes to do it. I think he has one loss on his record, and when he got knocked out by Kevin Lee. Aside from that, he's basically mauled everyone. Best wrestler in the division. What do you make of it?
Wild. What? I didn't see this in the updated post, man. That's crazy because as great of a fighter as he is, he hasn't been too frequent. So I'm sure I'm guessing there has to be some sort of contractual dispute, or maybe he didn't want to fight down and the boss was like, bro, you got to, or you're not going to fight anymore. Like, you're not fighting up. So if you're not fighting down, you're not fighting. Wild. I'm interested to see what more comes to light, because he is one of the real deal savage. You want to talk about a savage wrestler right there, somebody who isn't going to hold you down, he's going to beat you up. That's Gregor Gillespie. Interesting. It's wild. Yeah.
So we'll keep you updated on that, folks. But tune in for future episodes to find out the conclusion of that story. Folks, listen, we gave you everything. So do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. That is what is important. That's what keeps the lights on, all the good stuff. You know what time it is. AJ, brother, you got any last words for the people?
Man, I think the biggest thing, you've already said it, Derick. Obviously, go like, subscribe, get your merch up there, folks. We always got it going. But the big thing that, to me, that I feel like that you should take away from this, you know, we're bringing you the best highlights, the best breakdowns, the odds, the bets, and all that stuff. But we're also staying not humble, but responsible. Yeah. Putting that out there, letting you know that, hey, this is actually what we bet down. We're not just putting bets down, turning away and running away, tail tucked between our legs. We're letting you know straight up, this is the proof right here in your face. Who else is that reputable to keep it going like that? Not many people out there have the cojones to actually own up to what they said. And then, you know, that's what we're doing out here with the best MMA show in the entire world. That's happy that you're here at the end, Derick, and it's been a lot of fun doing this thing with you, brother. I'm excited for next week too.
It's always a great time. Always love breaking down fights, and hopefully we have another banger of a card on our hands next week. You know what time it is. Holly Holm versus Katlyn Vieira. You gotta love it. Tune in on Friday for the preview show, Monday for the post show. You know what time it is, folks. BloodyWaterPodcast.com. Until next time, folks. Peace.